and we know that. Oh, okay. Thanks, Kels. We we definitely can't be all things to everyone, but together we can do all things with each other. So, it's going to be a great 2023. If you guys were not at the Lens of Equity Summit, absolutely incredible, very powerful. 250 people from just all over Washington State. Some flew in from out of state. It was just absolutely incredible. So, a lot of great things are happening. But again, I think a lot of it in what we're doing is we're changing what all of this looks like. Kelly and I was talking about it earlier this week. And, everyone tries to describe really what the task force is. What is it? What is it? What is it? And it finally hit me. I finally figured out what it was. We are a collaborative service network, period. We are a collaborative service network. Everybody has a space. Everybody has a place, no matter what sector you are in or within or the titles that you have. Y'all know we don't care about titles up in here. It's about what you do for community, how you do it with community, and we make sure that we stay sustainable and visible in community. And that's who we are as a task force. There is no one person in this group that is better than another person in this group. We just rock together because we all have amazing strengths. And for some reason, we continue to put those strengths and beliefs within each other to do the great work that we do. And we will continue to do that work. So I just want to say, welcome, you guys. Welcome to 2023. I'm already in 2024 because I'll be on that futuristic stuff. But we got a lot of great things getting ready to happen and go on, man. And I can't wait to just see what we do this year. A lot of amazing things, a lot of great updates coming. So welcome. I'm excited about the guest that we have coming in today. Absolutely incredible, doing what she do. But I'm gonna leave that to a different introduction. But welcome, welcome, welcome. It's gonna be a great morning.
Tamar, you had said that it was a collaborative network. Was that what you said? I just want to make sure I get it right.
We are a collaborative service network.
Thank you. I knew I was missing something.
That is it. When they ask you what we do, the Pierce County Community Engagement Task Force is a collaborative service network that identifies both geographically and demographically the service needs of our community, and we do it collaboratively and collectively to bring economic mobility to Pierce County's individuals and families. I hope somebody recorded that because I ain't gonna remember it when we're done. I'll turn it back to you, Kels, or Shells, one of y'all.
Right on. Thanks, Tamar. I love that. I think that's what we're gonna describe collaboration for a cause too this year, a collaborative service network, and we kind of jump away from resource fair. So I wanted to go into initiative updates just a little bit. So we have, of course, we have several initiatives within the task force. Norinda, did we find anything on organizational structures? Nothing today? Okay. No. Those meetings are continuing. And then say hi to Kennedy. Kennedy, say hi to everybody. Welcome to working at home for the summer where your children never leave your side. So we'll do a small business voice committee, which is kicked off. That is just going amazing. I'm gonna let Tamar do that real quick, and then we'll come back to myself for outreach and engagement.
Absolutely. So Sam and Jamie couldn't be here today. Those are the leaders of the Small Business Engagement Group. It was a coalition that really launched earlier this year, really trying to figure out how we identify and support small businesses, minority, Black-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned businesses in the Pierce County community. I know that there's a lot of different spaces where, you get different certifications or, different support. But, I think when we thought about the Small Business Engagement Group is what happens after that? Where's the support? What other organizations can you sit and talk to, be in the same space to feel that you can ask these questions, figure out who's been where and who's doing what and how they actually were able to conquer, jump, or get through whatever they had to go through. So we created the Small Business Engagement Group. It happens, I want to say currently bi-monthly as we're getting in, but usually we have different guest speakers that come in. I know we had Oliver come in last month and he was just talking about different entrepreneurship moves. We've had Red Canoe come in and they were talking about micro loans and The bigger loans. Y'all know I ain't no banker, but the big loans, whatever those are. I know Angela maybe know. But it was a lot of great things happening because one thing we realized that a lot of small businesses don't know that other small businesses are going through the same things that they're going through. And they sit and they feel that they're by themselves doing this, but they're not. And so we wanted to give them space, just as we do with everybody else. We give community space here, we give young adult space here. Why not support businesses in the same area where they have a platform to express their voices, their needs? And as a task force, we usually do, we figure out how to support them. So a lot of great things coming that way. If you are interested in being a part of the small business engagement group, if you know a small business that could use the support or just a place where they feel safe to talk about issues and struggles that they're going through, please connect to Sam Bradshaw or Jamie Armstrong. And if you don't have their information, reach out to Kelly or myself, and we'll make sure that we get you guys connected.
Awesome. Thank you, Tamar. And then for the next update was, of course, the community engagement group. We are actually yesterday, we just got the contract in our lap to go ahead, and we will be at the Tacoma Dome on November 1st for Collaboration for a Cause. That has been a process, y'all. That has been a process to lock down the Tacoma Dome, but we finally did it. So you'll start to see some invites for that come out. The first thing you're going to see launched is vendors and organizations. We're looking at approximately 150 to 175. So that invite should come out hopefully before the end of July. Make sure that you register on that right away if your organization is interested in having a table at Collaboration for a Cause. We also do that. We also have that committee meeting, which is going to run about every 3 weeks through November. And we're kind of ramping that up a little bit because there's just so much to do. And we're really, the keyword for me this summer is delegate. So need a lot of help putting that together for sure. Christy's on here. Christy has just been amazing and things like helping coordinate food and things like that. So there's just, again, there's so many pieces to such a large event at the Tacoma Dome. We do need a lot of help. So if you go on the task force page, you can always email Tamara and I directly as well. If you're interested in being involved, like, please let us know. And if you're emailing me, like, be specific about what you're interested in doing as far as helping with Collaboration for a Cause, because I'd be more than glad to have you lead up that assignment. So that's pretty exciting stuff. We don't have any other events like attached to the task force coming up until November. That is, yep, we're pretty much saving everything for that time. I will be out the entire month of August. If you haven't heard, I might be marrying the love of my life. So I will be out the entire month. I can't believe it. I'm actually taking a full 4-week vacation, but you guys can always blow tomorrow up. I'm sure he'll get those messages to me and call me if you need me. So that'll be awesome. I also wanted to do a shout out for the Washington Workforce Association. So WWA is coming to Tacoma this year. That will be held in, it is November too. Woo! November is going to be big. If you get emails from any of us at Workforce Central, many of us have put like the link for the registration and that below our emails. I have not yet, but we'll send that out too. We're also looking forward to the launch, relaunch, I guess you could say, of AKA Kelly's Awesome Newsletter, but really it's like the Workforce, the Workforce Central Community Resource newsletter. That should be launched pretty soon. What I need on that too is, it's only going to be as big as we make it. Right now, we have about 170 people registered to receive it, 170 community partners. If you want to put any flyers in there from your organization, please send those to me. I'll get in as many as I can. It is a long newsletter, but it's all flyers. I mean, there's no reading in there except the very top and the very bottom. It's all flyers that you can click, download, print, and share. And so that's about it for my updates. Tomorrow, any other update? A Lens of Equity. Want to take off on Lens of Equity real quick? Just a little short update on that.
No, absolutely. And I'm going to circle back to the WWA. For you guys that do not know, WWA, Washington Workforce Association, that is the annual workforce development conference that happens in Washington State. For those that may not know a lot about workforce development, for those that want to upgrade their network, add to their network. This is a great opportunity for you guys to come in and collaborate with workforce development councils across Washington State. Other partners will be coming in doing different presentations. And I mean, to be honest with you guys, go on the link. If you got something that you want to say, you feel the Workforce Development Council should know about it or want to learn about it or be interested in it, there's opportunity to actually put in for presentations. And we're looking for presentations right now. It's going to be a great opportunity. We're hosting it in Tacoma. So, hey, my city, my hometown, I love it. So I can't wait for it to come here with us. When we talk about that newsletter, hear me out when I say this. This is a great opportunity, once again, to share everything with everybody. You do not have to do these things by yourself. We aren't looking for particular programs. If you got something to give to this community, please reach out to Kelly, reach out to Chloe, get that information over to us. We want to send it one place, one time. There's too many of us trying to email too many other people to say the same thing. Send it to one location and it will go out when it needs to go out. We want to support you guys in that. Again, we can't do this work alone, but we can share it in one place. So we stop getting emails ejected. Y'all know what it is. When you get 37 of the same thing, what do? You put it in spam. We don't want it to go in spam. We want that newsletter, AKA the Kelly Old newsletter, whatever she wants to call it. I'm going to give that to her. But it's a great opportunity to share the great things that you are doing within your organization and how they're able to connect with you guys. Big thing, keep it on your calendar. Lens of Equity Summit 2024 is coming. It's probably looking at the fall, but keep it on your calendars. I don't want nobody acting like they didn't hear it early. Let your bosses know, let your policy people know, let fiscal know. They better budget for it next year because a lot of people got mad because they couldn't be there. I'm letting y'all know very early, a year early. Let your people know to put it in the budget to get some of that education, because it's going to be some heat coming this way. I'll talk to you soon.
Kelly, I can send you, I've done a number of presentations on goodness of fit for hiring staff, especially folks with disabilities at other workforce development council meetings or associations. Happy to give that presentation again. Just send you an email, right?
Yeah, we could talk about that offline, but yeah, for sure. Would love that.
That's my updates. I'm
Thank you,
done.
Dean. That's my updates too. Let's go ahead and turn it over to Shelly to kick us off. Do you want me to go, Shelly, or you want you to go?
What you about to do?
I'm about to do our amazing speaker bio. Like, let's talk about Norinda. I love all the grace that y'all are giving me today for the first time moderating this Zoom meeting too.
Yeah,
So if we go
like,
into some crazy breakout groups, like, it's my fault. It's my
yeah,
fault.
yeah. So yeah, you can do that. I was about to paste it in there because I didn't know if I was doing it or if you were doing it. So go ahead and do it. But I just want to preface or put some context behind my emotions when I am in the presence of the amazing Norinda Rosario Yancey. That for me, as a woman of color, as a professional woman, as a woman who understands that every day you got to figure out how you're going to show up so that way you can make it through some of these days, right? We don't always get things right, but one thing that I believe that has happened that is right for me is connecting to this amazing woman who is about to be our speaker and presenter that you heard her at the Lens of Equity Summit, and that I'm going to copy and paste her bio because that's something that y'all can snatch out of the chat, and then y'all can use it when you write her award recommendations. Y'all can use it when y'all go and contact her to contract out with her to speak, because yes, we get checks. We need to make sure that we give people their flowers and make those connections and keep things going forward. But I can't say enough about this amazing professional woman who has really impacted lives on her own growth spectrum and along the way. Usually people, their bounce back isn't as great, or people always look for stories of tragedy as though I got to pimp myself out as someone who suffered so much that I don't get to talk about my resiliency story or my journey or where I am, my groundedness, my wholeness, my fulfillment. At what pinnacle moment did I feel like I am full, I am whole, and this is great. There's been a lot of conversations in the space around trying to figure out who suffered the most, who's going through the most. There are no trophies for that, and I don't want that kind of trophy. What I want is I want to be empowered to be settled and be not so much about, it's not about complacency, but to be at peace and have some resolve about that I'm making the right decisions that will fit my life and the journey that in my life's journey that I'm on. And knowing that my life journey does not have to look like anyone else's. It's not. It's mine. My DNA is one. I am the miracle. I am the hope. I am the driver. I am the focus. I am the friend, the sister, the wife, the mother, the everything that I need to be for the people who are the right fit for my life. I know that, and I have a strong spirit of reconciliation. I have a strong spirit of collaboration and collective impact. I have a strong spirit of togetherness and understanding how to operate in those spaces wholly and not allow them to consume me so much to where I'm a wreck and I don't serve anything well. I can say that I've been privileged and honored to hear this woman speak and talk about so many of those things. And so I didn't want to just use her written bio. I wanted to talk from a personal space because I know her, and knowing of someone is a deeper relationship than knowing of. And when you understand and you identify that you have a knowing of someone, then that means you have a strong relationship with, not connection to, but relationship with. And I think I'm making her cry, and I don't mean to, but there is power in knowing versus knowing of. Kind of like when you say, I knew her when, but you didn't know her. You just knew her when she worked at Target, but you don't know her. And the her that she was then and the her she's become are two different hers. So I'm gonna get all out of her business and her presentation, and I'm going to present to you Miss Norinda Rosario Yancey and her wholeness and fullness of what she wants to continue to share. And if you weren't at the Lens of Equity Summit and heard her presentation, you missed that opening piece, that piece of planting that she did, but I'm excited for what we will receive today. So Miss Norinda, sister, friend, the floor is yours.
Wow, that was incredible. Thank you. Very touching, and I'm very humbled by that. But crying is easy for me, and I definitely show up authentically, so there's no shame in it. I do want to say before I get started, I am not a mental health practitioner. Those of you that know me, or maybe you've seen my name pop up somewhere, you may be wondering, does she have those letters behind her name? I don't. But what I can tell you is, and I'm not here trying to front like I am, but what I can tell you is I'm a survivor of generational poverty, and I'm a survivor of this system that we call dominant culture. And as a result, I have experienced significant wellness challenges throughout my life that have negatively impacted my overall well-being, which has forced me to explore ways to heal and to prevent or reduce or mitigate any future illness or suffering. And so I am going to get started with my presentation. So bear with us. Some of us still are a little bit rusty when it comes to this kind of thing. And I'm sharing this role with, I think, Kelly. So Kelly, I'm going to share screen, but wait a minute. I have to put it in presentation mode before I share it. Is that what happens? So which one am I clicking here?
So you should have your presentation already up on your laptop. Then you hit.
I do.
And then share screen. There you go. And then put your PowerPoint in presentation mode.
That's what I'm trying to do, and I don't see how to do it. I've done this before, but man, here we go.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. Mm-hmm. And
We're
then
doing this.
I do get a little nervous every time I present. It doesn't matter how prepared I am. So thank you for your grace. Okay, here we go. I think I can do this. There we are. This is better. You guys can see it, no problem? All right, so this has been creatively titled The Burnout Within, which I just love. It makes me smile and laugh at the same time. It sounds terrifying, but I think it's funny. Prioritizing mental health and service providing. So according to SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, wellness is not the absence of disease or illness or stress, but it is the presence of a positive purpose in life, satisfying work and play, joyful relationships, a healthy body and living environment, and happiness. If you came to the Lens of Equity Summit, some of you may have seen that I shared this graphic. It comes from SAMHSA as well. They identify 8 dimensions of wellness, and these are them: emotional, financial, social, spiritual, occupational, physical, intellectual, environmental, and recreational. Well, I added recreational as a matter of fact, and I did that at my presentation because what we realized was none of these areas of wellness really spoke to fun. And so we added that as something for us to think about, because most of us, even though you might think that fun might be somewhere in the emotional and the physical, it's not fully represented there. So just something that I add on anecdotally. Now, I want you to just take a few moments really to take a look at this, right? Some of you may have some familiarity with a wellness wheel. There are others that are similar to this that have fewer dimensions. They may only have 6 or 7. This one I thought had the broadest representation of what wellness looks like. But what I want to get at here is these things do not exist in isolation, right? These aspects of wellness are not isolated. One can affect another and so on, creating a domino effect that once activated can rob us of our well-being and bring us dangerously close to burnout, or worse, a psychiatric episode, especially if there's trauma or loss involved. And today there's so much to cover. I'm not going to get into the stigmas of it or the myths of it. Like, we already know, most of us, that this is still really uncomfortable to talk about. We feel vulnerable when it comes to revealing to others or sharing with others our physical, emotional, or mental challenges. But today, I'm not going to be that person. I'm going to be as transparent as I can. Although this is not centered on my experience, I may make some reference to some things that are. But again, all of this comes from or is inspired by my experience as an individual and also what I've seen others experience. And certainly what I feel is happening now in our environment. Because I don't know about you, but I am seeing people suffering in a multitude of areas right now. And I feel like it's more than I've ever seen. So I'm not really sure what all is going into it. I'm sure we could all speculate, but we're going to stay focused on the topic at hand. So there's the wellness wheel. Hang on a second. And then let's go to the next one. Self-care is the ability of individuals, families, and communities to promote health, prevent disease, maintain health, and to cope with illness and disability with or without the support of a healthcare provider. And that's from the World Health Organization. Really, the goal of self-care is to prevent or control disease and preserve overall well-being through the consistent act of taking care of various verticals or dimensions of one's own health. So what's interesting is self-care has been talked about in the last couple of years quite a bit. It sounded at first a little trendy. It may still feel that way for folks, but the truth is, at its core, it's really so much more than what many of us have thought it to be. So we want to take a look at what is self-care really? And to do that, we'll look at what people think it is and what it really is. And some of this may sound familiar to you. So if it does, feel free to amen or comment or light up the chat in any way you feel. We will be having some breakout sessions, but for now, some of this is me sharing with you. And this is what people thinking about self-care is now is overindulgence in spending. People talking about treating themselves to, new clothes or maybe going on expensive, lavish vacations, anything that provides instant gratification, perfecting oneself, right? Like, I'm going to get my nails done. I'm going to make sure my hair is right. I'm going to focus on making this presentation so perfect. And that's going to make me feel better because I know I'm going to be on point. There are things we miss when we do that, when we just strive for perfection. We also often think that self-care is, self-medicating, regardless of whether we feel it's necessary or not. We tend to think that, having a good time is maybe getting together with a friend and having a drink and unwinding, or maybe even the use of an illicit substance. Also, and this is big for me, binge watching television, picking a show and just vegging out. I've often thought that that was good for me, right? But what is self-care actually? Self-care actually is prioritizing one's physical and mental health, adopting healthy lifestyle habits that can be maintained long-term, eating a healthy diet. And I often tell folks, it's such an easy thing to ignore when we're stressed. We need to think about hydration and we need to think about nutrition, finding exercise activities that we enjoy and participate in them regularly, getting an adequate amount of good quality sleep. That's huge, by the way. I could do a whole presentation on sleep and how it affects our health. Also, following treatment plans for existing conditions accordingly. Meaning if you're already in some sort of relationship with a caregiver or a practitioner or a health provider, if they're making recommendations on things that you could be doing, but maybe you haven't activated those recommendations, or you haven't really leaned into them, that's one thing that you can do for yourself, right? Getting an adequate amount of quality sleep, that's right, following treatment plans for existing conditions, and then taking time out for yourself to participate in healthy activities that you enjoy. Now, we are going to go into our first breakout session. The question for this, we're going to do 4 people max per room if we can. Kelly, let's shoot for that. The question we're going to ask you to discuss amongst yourselves, and we're going to give it 12 minutes. The question is, what barriers to self-care are you currently experiencing? And if you're not, you can talk about what it is that you're doing, but the priority is to just make time for everyone to be able to speak and respond to this prompt. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. And you can also always send us a question in the chat if you like. And Kelly's going to get us set up for this breakout session.
You have to do math to do breakout rooms. Who
A
knew?
little bit. Yes, ma'am.
Norinda, can you just repeat the question one more time before
Yes,
I just
ma'am.
read it?
It's what barriers to self-care are you experiencing? What time is it?
And go. Everybody in.
Hey,
Good morning. Good morning.
hey, Carly, how you doing?
Good morning, everyone.
I love the beach waves. It's giving me beach.
Thank you. I
It's
know.
giving me I don't want to be in the office.
Right? We need some more sun.
Oh, we got
I
plenty of that.
haven't had
Plenty,
I haven't
plenty
had
of
the pleasure to meeting you. I'm Delia Flores.
Nice to meet
meeting you.
I feel like I meet and know everybody, but you know,
You do.
I have either loved on you at some point, said, hey, you know. Oh my goodness. All right. So what is our question, ladies? What is our question?
What are the barriers
Yeah.
for self-care?
Back and you can, if you're back and you can hear my voice, I want you to type in the chat, what's one barrier you face to meeting your self-care needs? Yes, priorities, myself, working from home. Yes. Structured time. Yep. Sounds selfish. Accountability to myself to schedule the time. Self-prioritization. My identity and self-worth are tied to productivity. Thank you, Stephanie. Yes. Ooh, being accountable to myself for myself. Knowing when to turn off the screens. Yes. I get emotional when I read this stuff. Like I feel it. I know this is real. And I really appreciate your candor. Just because someone wants me does not mean that I should put that on my plate. I worked many years ago. I worked for a nonprofit organization that was founded by ex-offenders that was working to end the cycles of recidivism. And they were also people that were in recovery from drug addiction. And one of the most interesting things I learned from them was you don't have to eat off of everybody's plate. And it took me a minute to understand what that meant, but other people bringing their stuff to you, it's okay to be empathetic and compassionate, but we've got to figure out when it's okay to be selfish. Yes. Thank you for engaging in the chat. All right. So what are some of the barriers to self-care, right? Many of you named a ton, and they're not all on here, but they definitely are connected. And so let's talk about some of the ones that came up when I was preparing for this presentation. Low self-worth, feelings of guilt, time constraints, the reality that change isn't easy, a lack of understanding of what self-care truly is. How about workplace cultures surrounding self-care, right? How many workplace cultures really support self-care, promote it and support it? And some of us touched on this, a lack of planning for ourselves, right? So I want to share a little bit more about these. When it comes to low self-worth, according to research, people overly critical of themselves or those with a low sense of self-worth often avoid self-care and don't see it as a priority. When it comes to feeling guilty, it's true that putting others first is common for many of us, especially with children and those who are used to taking care of people because of their life or work situation. And when you're taxed with taking care of yourself, there can be an air of guilt because you feel as though you're being selfish. Time constraints. Life gets busy and practicing self-care is often put on the bottom of the priority list when things that are seemingly more important are still left unfinished. Sound familiar? Overachievers, right? Trying to get the most in. Making change isn't easy. So to adopt self-care practices, you will have to make some changes in life. And this is not an easy thing to do. There's tons of books written about change, right? Now, lack of understanding. Many people do see self-care as frivolously spending time on themselves and the like. However, this is not the case. If people don't understand the best and most beneficial forms of self-care, they are less likely to practice them with regularity. Workplace culture surrounding self-care. In some workplaces, there's a stigma around surrounding yourself with self-care, as if practicing it is somehow selfish. And while that's not the case, it often leads people to see self-care as a stressor because of the way it's viewed by colleagues. That's terrible, right? Yes.
Are we supposed to be seeing a slide?
You can't see it?
No, we can't see the slide.
You didn't, you went, when we went into breakout rooms, your screen share stops.
Have mercy.
That's
I
okay,
mean-
you doing good. I mean, if we needed to see a slide, great, but if not, I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I was rolling with it.
I just need it as a mental reminder.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
I should have said that it was intentional so you could practice your listening skills in that segment of the presentation. Hold on a second. Okay.
Thank you.
I love how gracious you all have been with me. Here we go. Can you see it now?
Yep.
All right. Let's see if I can handle it. Now can I see where here we go. Okay. So these are them. And the last one we're talking about workplace culture surrounding self-care. While it's not selfish to practice self-care, it can lead people to think of self-care or see it as a stressor because of how it's viewed by others, particularly colleagues in the workspace. And then a lack of planning, which many people in the chat reference. Most people are practicing it only when it's necessary, which leads to less effective self-care activities, right? It's almost like, you've got to do it. And then you have sort of this attitude that you're doing it begrudgingly. So we're not even that enthused about doing it. It feels like we're making a sacrifice, even though consciously we've been taught, we believe we understand the connection to our well-being. Somehow we still struggle to get there. And I say we, trust me, I mean we. Okay, here we go. So what I want you to do is I want you to type in the chat which of the barriers challenges you the most.
Hey, Norinda, can you put the
Yes,
back up?
yes, I sure can.
Thanks.
And it doesn't have to be one of mine. It can be one, it can be yours. It could be the one you mentioned, whatever you were thinking about earlier, it could be connected to that. I'm not seeing the responses in the chat this time. I'm not sure why. But if
It's
somebody
because
else
it's
wants to,
sharing screen, but I can read them off for you, what they're putting.
that's
Feel-
cool. Let's do that.
Yeah, feeling guilty, time constraints. Somebody said, can we say all of them? Managing changes and easy has come up, feeling guilty again. So look like you're kind of up and down the spectrum of the options that you have.
Yeah.
Corbett wrote, when you are in a system position and a person of color, you carry a load and responsibility that can burn you out. You are actively on or feel like on the front lines. If your employer, what does he say? If your employer doesn't, I guess, create a healthy environment. I'm sorry, Corbett, if I'm tearing it up. It is a barrier and impacts how you can balance peace and well-being. People need environments to change or extra live and support change or or extra, I guess.
Yeah, that word was supposed to be love. Sorry
Okay,
about that.
love and that's what I was thinking, Corbett. Love and support to be in a systemic fight or need to come out of the matrix every so often and recharge. In other words, I love that mandated,
Yeah.
just sharing a little bit of my ear hustling with my daughter, identifying that a coworker hasn't taken vacation since everything started, and it's got enough vacation to take a whole 30 days.
Yeah.
You got to go on vacation. I don't care where you go, but you got to go. So
Yeah.
almost like being kicked off in this conversation, it's almost like that's a sign also of good leadership, meaning that you're paying attention to and it's a lot of work on everyone and you're noticing these trends. Everyone's trying to take little breaks here and there. Then you've got a few people who haven't taken any vacation time at all and they've got a ton of it. Now I've got to make you take vacation. Or like for our organization, I like that we have mental health days. We get, I think, 4 a year now. And I like that our leadership thinks enough of us to connect them to holidays so that we have longer holiday time off. And so we get the break.
And I think,
yeah.
Shelley, when you was talking about the vacation too, going back to, I think someone had put it in the chat, as far as in that time prioritizing and feeling guilty. I think a lot of us in organizations see it. You got somebody that's the end all be all. And it's like, well, you should be doing this. And, well, I'm taking care of myself. Well, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be raw. It's like, no, I'm taking care of myself. So sometimes in organizations, you're judged for becoming better employees by doing what you need to do for your mental first. Like you said, take vacation. I had to learn that. I took vacation and I'd be lonely and bored, but I take it. You know what I mean? I don't know where I'm going, but I take it. But it's like learning what that looks like, absolutely. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Vacation is a big thing, but for some reason, I think with the hybrid, and I think it is the hybrid work style, people don't feel that they need to take vacation. They need to take vacation still.
Yeah. They absolutely do.
Here, Norinda, it says my culture, taking care of self is considered selfish. Downtime is considered a waste of time. That was from Delia. And Annika said what works is self-care for her may be different than what works for others. And that needs to be recognized, that self-care identification and how you actually apply it is different. That's good,
Absolutely.
Annika.
Absolutely.
I think that's it in the chat.
I think we also have to recognize it's their job position too, because all of our positions are different and they come with different tags to it that other people may not see. I mean, I agree with everything everybody just said, but I taking vacation, like I'm literally trying to choose the time by which I take a break. Because I don't want to take away from anybody. You think about taking away from other people if you take a break at certain times. And so I don't know how that sort of gets spun, goes away or not. How do you know, it's those elements too that hit people.
That's that servant thinking too, right? That's exactly trying to take care of oneself without negatively impacting others and prioritizing other people's needs first. When you first started to talk, Deborah, it got me thinking about privilege. And depending upon what your role is, what your relationship is with your supervisor, what your title is, how much power you have, whether your boss is a micromanager or not, those are all game changers. Some of us may have more agency and some of us have way less. I know we're all grown and we should be able potentially to, have a civil conversation with a supervisor or a team and say, hey, I need these things, or I'm going to be implementing these things, but there are some serious challenges with that. So that's all real. And also, Shelley, when you were talking, it made me think about connection. And we could do a whole presentation on connection, although somebody else might have to do it. But just thinking about, we need to have some level of connection with other human beings if we're hoping to see what others need and advocate for them, or hoping that others see us and advocate for us. So you're absolutely right. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because one of the things that helps me kind of get out of the funk, so to speak, is when I can take a moment to recognize what somebody else needs, as long as it's not me trying to save them, but if I can just have a moment to serve, a moment to be grateful, those are things that I feel like are keys that have kind of unlocked some blessings, if you will. Again, a lot of this, we could talk about so many different facets of this in future conversations, but today I want to keep us on track. I want to talk about, thank you all for sharing that. I want to talk now about knowing your rights. And I think this is a little bit interesting. I did this already. Knowing your rights. So Tracy Hutchinson, who's a PhD, she's a therapist, says that the first step to feeling respected and safe in a relationship is knowing your rights. And these rights include what's in front of you. So to feel safe in a relationship, to have your privacy and boundaries you created respected, to be heard and listened to feel validated, to be appreciated and valued, to respect that the answer no means no, to have your needs met, to be treated respectfully, which is the absence of emotional, physical, or verbal abuse. And it's interesting because at first pass, I wasn't sure that this fit. And then I had to go through it again, and I had to just shift my thinking just a little bit. And that last one especially, I thought to myself, wow, this is a real thing. And I feel like it has happened a lot in my work life where I haven't been treated respectfully, and I have experienced emotional, physical, and verbal abuse on the job. So again, this isn't a testimonial, but I just know that these are very real things. And it makes sense to me that we would ground some of this thinking in knowing what our rights are. That said, I am curious, I'll say this, you don't need to limit yourself to these rights, right? But they can serve as a guide for creating boundaries that are important to you. It will take time and practice to figure out what boundaries are most important. So you'll want to also consider your values, life experience, and relationship dynamics. And so our next breakout session is really about how it feels to think about these statements as rights. Several of us just talked about, most of us talked about all these barriers to us taking care of ourselves. So if we think about taking care of ourselves and the positive impacts of that as rights, my question to you all now is, how does it feel to think about these statements as rights? How does it make you feel? Right? Because now I'm telling you, you have a right to these things. And I'm sure that's challenging some of your thinking. So I want to have a conversation. Maybe we'll do, I don't know, 9 minutes. We'll see how that goes maybe, or 10 minutes. But what 2 to 3 of those statements would you prioritize if you thought you'd be supported? If you knew that whoever it is you needed to tell was going to say, yes, I understand, you got it, what would you say you needed out of those list of rights?
Can you go back to those rights real quick
Sure
prior
will.
to going?
I sure will. Kelly, do you have the question? Do you need it? How does it feel to think about these statements as rights? And which 2 would you prioritize? Here they go. And it is okay if you say all of them. No rules in how you answer these questions.
Norinda, don't go into your room yet. I'm gonna do rooms now.
Yes, ma'am. Nice.
While we're in rooms, I am pausing recording.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. I love it when a breakout session gets people excited and the conversation just kind of takes off. And sometimes we don't know as presenters whether or not that's going to happen with the prompt that we choose. But I think that last one actually generated some great conversation in the breakout session that I was in. So I hope you found that useful. I'm going to have to kind of move us a little bit forward more quickly. And let's talk about the benefits of self-care. I'm sure some of you already have a sense of how practicing self-care can be beneficial to you, but I want to cover what I found that was sort of documented as being more common in terms of short-term and long-term outcomes. So short-term, you're likely to experience reduced stress levels and increase in your self-worth and feelings of belonging if any of your self-care involves connection to other human beings, okay? And then when it comes to long-term benefits, and of course, if you remember going back to the beginning of this presentation, self-care really is about getting to long-term beneficial outcomes. And so long-term outcomes include better management of disease and chronic illness, prevention of disease, reduction of chronic stress that leads to chronic disease, which is highly prevalent amongst people of color, particularly the Black community. Healthier, sorry, not used to using the wheel here. Healthier relationships because of the increase in self-esteem and self-worth, an improvement in job satisfaction, reduction in burnout caused by the busyness of life, and overall improved quality of life and well-being. Okay. So, building boundaries, what are ways that we can do that? And this is a real shock and probably very uncomfortable for those of you who are born and bred here in the Pacific Northwest, but you gotta be assertive. I'm gonna say it. You gotta be assertive, right? At the risk of being called aggressive out here, you might have to speak up a little bit more about what you need. And of course, along with that goes learning to say no without feeling guilty. Safeguarding your spaces, getting support if and when needed, and stating physical boundaries. Okay. We're not good. I don't think we have time for a breakout session on this one, but what we can do, let's see. What I'd like to do, maybe you think we can just have a conversation, an open conversation with everyone here. And if there are folks that want to share verbally, that will be fine. You can raise your hand. If you want to type in the chat, you can. But I really want us to think about, before we walk away today, and I know it's hard to get to solution in just one meeting, but what is one or potentially 2 boundaries that you could set around your health to ensure that you can prioritize your self-care plan? Where can you start? And maybe you need a minute, and that's okay. But if any of you have any ideas, or you want to share a thought, or even ask a question, look, Sara is ready. I love it. Go
So
ahead, my friend.
I think we need to learn to say no and don't feel obligated to say yes to everything. And remember that you're just human and just you, and things, unless it's something that is gonna cost lives, then you feel obligated. Otherwise, everything is gonna be here after whatever you miss or you didn't attend, and other people will fill you in. So you don't have to be everywhere. You don't have to do everything. You do what it makes you feel good and make you happy.
Thank you. I love that. Carissa.
Yeah, so one of the things that I find it really difficult for me, and I know many other people, is looking at my own self-time and self-care and not seeing it as selfish. You know, I mean, we live in this society where if you do anything for yourself, then, you know, or put yourself first, you're selfish. But I think there's a majority of people who are not they're so selfless that they are so scared to put themselves first because they don't want to be seen as selfish. And so it's like we have this stigma in our head that if I put myself first, then instantly it's going to, you know, depict who I am in my character. And that's just not true.
I think you're very right about that. Wow, that one almost stings for me. That's truth. Thank you. I don't know if there are any other hands. I'm looking.
I'm jumping in.
Tomorrow.
Double dutching in. Hey, selflessness is not selfish, or it is selfish. Everybody, for some reason, feel like everybody else is more important than them. I'm gonna tell you right now, none of y'all are more important than me. The better I am and the better I take care of myself, the better that I can be here, serve y'all, and love y'all. I think we got to start being more assertive to addressing how people support and show up for us. Again, we can't support each other if we do not know how to support you. If we don't know, we're just assuming what it looks like to support you. And, you know, you had one being safe in relationships. If you feel safe in that relationship, I should be able to tell you, hey, today's not the day. I don't really feel like talking. And you shouldn't be looked at wrong. You shouldn't be looked at as you're being rude. Hey, that's how my friend wants me to support them. I will call tomorrow to check up on them. Again, going back to what Sarah said, it's okay to say no. Today's not the day. Period. I can't do it. And, you know, Shelly always says, and I love it, you know, PTO, start preparing the others. This is what's going to happen, and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm using PTO time. So, you know, when Shelly said it the first time, I loved it because, you know, you got to prepare the others for this stuff. You're not being selfish. We got to stop thinking about that way. You are a better person to this world if you are healthy as much as you can be healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally. You can't do this work without making sure you were taken care of first.
I love that, Tamar. Thank you. Yeah, I often give a series of R words to that. I think about a lot of times when something triggers us potentially, or there's a moment where we're feeling, you know, the need to do something for ourselves and we're questioning whether or not we should do it. I often say, I need to be able to retreat. I think Kelly used that word. I think it's healthy when the red flag goes off and you go, ooh, I don't like this right here. I mean, there's some advice out there that says, you know, confrontation can be healthy, right? And that's true. But if we struggle with it, then we need to get prepared for it because it can be very, very traumatizing, especially if you're not prepared to have a conversation with someone and you're coming off really like you're on 10, right? And you sound angry, but really you're just full of emotion. It's not really the best situation. So for me, I definitely believe in retreating, taking some time to relax, regroup, refresh, and come back at it. And I don't make any apologies for that. I used to feel really weird about it because I would sort of drop back for a little while, but I do that regularly as needed to give myself time and space, because any work that we do that is community, that involves community, that's outward facing, that involves exchanging energy with human beings, that's very taxing on us as individuals. It takes a lot of mental, emotional, and physical energy to do that. And any depletion in any of those dimensions of wellness has the potential to wreak havoc, right? You get really sick, you don't show up that well at work, and maybe you lose your job. Now, so you go from physical health to occupational health to financial health, and you can see, again, the domino effect of how any one of these things can potentially lead to another. So at some point, the question becomes, what do we do to take care of ourselves? Because we're not going to be able to make a change overnight, and we may not be able to prevent some of the pressures and some of the stressors that come, but we really can start thinking more strategically, more tactically around what it is that we can do to establish new boundaries. And what I really wanted to do today that we don't have enough time for is I wanted us to practice with one another in breakout sessions how we were going to communicate a boundary to someone in our life that needs us, that needs to hear it. So that is something that I want to leave you with. I want you to be thinking about that. And maybe the task force will be thinking about maybe how we can incorporate some touch points throughout the year that give us an opportunity to address this. Because I really think, and this wasn't my idea, by the way, the team asked if this was something that I could go a little deeper into because of the presentation I did at Lens of Equity. So I'm not necessarily promoting it for my own benefit, but I do think that this subject is very popular for a reason. And people are struggling right now, whether we know them personally, intimately, or we only know them professionally. I see a lot of suffering around people not getting what they need to be well. And I have a really deep concern around that. So I'm wondering if there's opportunity for us to revisit this topic in meaningful ways, so that way we have the potential to change the culture in this community around self-care, around how it's discussed, how it's approached, whether or not, we're able to talk about it with supervisors and colleagues, and, again, paying attention to what others need and advocating for them as well, leading by example, all of those things. If there's anyone that wants to share anything now, we have a little bit of time, or if you have any questions, I think this is a good time to do that.
Hey, Norinda, is this slide deck going to be able to be shared with the group?
Absolutely. See, this was one boundary that you're going to practice, and then these were some recommendations for how we can do it. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think, as you said, this is, my man, Brian, and for anybody else who's first time on these meetings with us, I know a long time ago, Sarah Irish, she was at the beginning, Kelly, a lot of us, Courtney, Delia, and we used to really get together to focus on what was outside, how we did things outside all the time. It was outside everything. So we spent 2 hours investing in outside work. I think over the last few years, through COVID, these meetings became more about us, and they will continue to be about us. How do we come together collectively to be better to serve our community outward facing? This is a platform for safety for us. This is a platform for us to be vulnerable. This is a platform for us to teach each other. So yes, when Norinda spoke at Lens of Equity, it was incredible. We said, hey, the team needs you. Can you come up in here and give us something to think about? As always, you're going to give us something to think about. And this is something, again, that we can't stop talking about because it's true. It's like us stopping to talk about DEAI. We can't stop talking about it. It got to be in the forefront of whatever we're conversating about. So these are great moments, Norinda. I always blessed in your presence, always blessed in your words. And, I definitely agree with you. This is something, I think you done set yourself up for a series, but, we can talk about that later, but I think you done set yourself up for continued conversation around this, because this is very important. It helped me think about some things, and I think it helped everybody on this phone call think about it with the understanding that no is okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Tamara. Sara.
So I also think this is a great, group in the topic, especially after the pandemic. Everything come back so busy, so fast. And I think we need to slow down because I think that's how we got into the pandemic. So I think we need all those reminders. And if we are not doing like the world is not doing, at least a collective here is doing it. And yeah, because we're trying to make up for the lost time, but it's impossible and it's getting overwhelming. And having to say no to many things, sometimes it feels like bad, like you're a bad person, but at the same time it's like I don't have the capacity. So I've been hearing more people these days saying, I'm sorry, I cannot do it, I don't have the capacity, this is not gonna be happening because we don't have the manpower to do it, or the financial, everything. Like everybody tried to cram 3 years of time in the last 6 months. And I'm exhausted, and this is only July and I'm done with the year. So, and there is still more to come. So I think this is a great reminder of we need to slow down and be kind and give grace to each other. If one of us in conversations or planning or something say, I'm sorry, I cannot do it, it's okay. You won't be judged. I mean, at least from the group that is normally the people that you interact in everything. Because, you know, Tacoma, Pierce County is big, but it's small at the same time. So eventually we cross paths and we are asking each other for support. To be okay to say no and find other alternatives without putting a lot of stress and guilt on the other person.
So I just have to say, I got goosebumps listening to you, Sara, because, and again, that's a whole other topic, but I think you're absolutely right. I think the conditions that were created during COVID that we're living through now were, while maybe they were necessary for a time, they've been vastly destructive to work cultures and to individuals. We called it calendar Tetris, right? Time flattened. All of a sudden you're sitting at your desk and you don't need any time other than maybe to turn on your computer, right? Or to transition from one thing to the next, but not really any realistic time. And so we're just filling people's calendars up and just expecting more and more and more. And we haven't gotten out of it yet. We haven't. So I think you're spot on. We're already over time.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's like I said, we're training the standard, not the time. And those who were able to stay on, we want to say thank you to that. Norinda,
yes.
Thank you so much. You can stop sharing your screen real quick. And I just want to go ahead and wrap us up and close us out. I didn't want to stop the conversation. You know, facilitating groups, you have to pay attention to the energy, and you have to allow people, and there's still a lot of people in the room from when we started. So this has been amazing. The chat is blowing up. So now that you're not sharing your screen, you can kind of go through and see some of the comments that people were making. Great way to come back and reset. It is all of our responsibility to first love ourselves, and then it is also our responsibility to ensure that we teach others how to love us and treat us. And it is also important for us to understand that saying no or not being everywhere, it's not a mandate on your life, but this work that we do can create negative vices. It can create exhaustion if we allow it to. So if you don't get but a moment every now and then, such as today, try that to use as your reset. I want to leave you with one thing, and then we're going to go ahead and log off. And if you've never heard of the 4 agreements, I want you to go in and I want you to pull up the 4 agreements. I shared it yesterday with our Workforce Central staff. I was listening to a podcast and then a conversation, and something just came over me, and I pulled down an image and I shared the 4 agreements. And the 4 agreements, if you've never read it, by Don Miguel Ruiz, are: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. It's a small book, it's an easy read, but it's something you will always reflect on over and over again to be mindful. There's so much out there, so many things. The world has access to us. we have the power. You have been empowered today by Norinda. You have been reminded today by, you know, the fabulous Buddha that she is, the amazing spirit and energy that she is, the amazing colleague that she is, peer she is, whatever role she's ever played or plays in your life. You've been reminded today that you have a requirement. It is necessary for you to focus on yourself. And I also want to throw out one more challenge. When you get these slides from Norinda, if you don't journal, that's fine. But if you could, get a piece of paper and write out the rest of the year what your self-care plan is going to be.
Yeah.
This self-care plan is a professional and personal boundary sheet. You set the boundaries, you create your self-care plan that's going to take you through into 2024 and allow you to arrive in 2024 full, evolved, elevated, and reset. Set hard boundaries. People who know you and love you will respect those boundaries and they will understand. People who want to siphon from you all the time and don't think that they should have rights to you all the time will become a little bit disruptive, but that will tell you other things. That's another presentation for another conversation on another day. We'll get to that. I will talk offline to Tamar and Kelly about, because we do this work and we are a collective, right? We are a collaborative body. This is a great space. I'm not going to use the word safe because I think that as humans, we can create the aura of safety, but we should not have to, we can't be held accountable for safe space. Like, we do our best, but that's a lot of responsibility. And what I'm learning is that safety is it just needs to be evident or present or, absorbed. So maybe that'll be something that Kelly and Tamar can think about offline as we continue this conversation, making this a space for the next few months to get that reset, to get that resolve, and to set and understand our boundaries as public practitioners in this outward facing social service space that we're in, no matter what you do, that we need a space to be able to kind of get to receive and what that looks like. So we thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time. Thank you for staying with us a little longer than you normally would. This presentation is being recorded, and I will stop the recording now, and Norinda and Kelly and Tamar stay on, but the rest of you have a great week. Set boundaries, honor the boundaries you set, and you need to first love yourself. Have a great week, and thank you. Thank you so much, Norinda. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.